The Solitary warship continued its vigil over the weaponized asteroids. While the crew waited, they listened to radio traffic coming from the Sutharian homeworld, Suthkasa Station, and the many starships in the area. As the crew eavesdropped on a whole star system, they were able to filter out and listen to a series of encrypted transmissions. With a great deal of effort and processing power, these transmissions were decrypted, allowing the Sentinel ship to listen into a conversation between two members of the Sutharian secret police. All of the field agents in your office will break up into 14 kill squads. Teams 1 through 7 will set up roadblocks at the preset checkpoints. Stop every driver and pedestrian. Ask for their identification. Kill anyone with a Birkin ID. Teams 7 through 14 will go house to house. I'm sending you the latest census data, so you'll know which buildings have Birkin families. Kill every Birkie you can find. Males, females, children. Everyone. Arm any Valdemar citizen who wants to help. Am I clear? The reply was transmitted from a starship over Sutharia. Understood. I'll brief the teams. When is the kickoff time for this operation? How will we know when it's time to start? When the time comes, there will be a signal. More details to follow in next contact. You have your orders. Now lose this frequency. Chapter 18. The Capital City. Trig had very mixed emotions about his first day on the Sutharian homeworld. He simply hated the fact that he was semi-conscious for the escape from the prison ship. All of the mercenaries were talking non-stop about Rulan's epic piloting skills that allowed Resonance Cascade to elude their mysterious pursuer, but Trig did not know what they were talking about. So that's it? Trig had said. Did we ever find out who was shooting at us? No, Selborn admitted. They never came closer than about 35,000 kilometers, so we couldn't get a good look. They were definitely some kind of MSI vessel, though, Bronley added. Probably a privateer or a contractor ship. We put the fear of the gods into whoever was running it, though. Ran away after dancing with us for a few minutes. Trig did get to have his triumphant first steps on the homeworld, but not in the way he imagined it. After the dangerous encounter in space, Trig's left arm was broken. His damaged limb was bound up in a sling, flooded with a cocktail of painkiller drugs. Ponico planned to take Trig to a hospital that catered specifically to Birkin children, where his arm would be repaired. However, just as Trig departed the Resonance Cascade and stepped onto the Venka Urbo spaceport, a white flag sailed across the tarmac and wrapped itself around him. A frantic moment went by before he realized it was Tenna. She was dressed in a modest white dress with black and gold trim, and she was crying profusely as she embraced Trig. "You saved my life up there," Tenna gushed. "You're like the most epic person I've ever met." Trig awkwardly hugged Tenna with one arm, and she remained locked onto him until Selborn pulled her away. "Time for your turban," Selborn admonished Tenna. "And please, don't hug any boys while you're still impure. Everyone's going to think you have no morals." Tactical Officer Rulan arranged for a small fleet of rental cars, allowing the mercenaries and their companions to move freely between the spaceport, the nearby hotel, and any other destinations they wanted to see during their downtime. Trig and his mother clambered into the back seat of a blue car, while Ponico disconnected the charging cable and started the electric engine. "Neither of you have been to Venka Urbo before, correct?" Ponico asked. "Allow me to give you the tour." Ponico revved up the electric car and drove in a loop around Venka Urbo's urban terrain. The city was divided into 6 districts. The agriculture district. You can find the largest farmers' market in the Empire here, Ponico said, rolling down the windows and allowing pleasant smells to waft into the car. Our people, the Birkin, have festivals here during the autumn when big game hunting is profitable. Sometimes the Voldemar will distribute weapons to their own people here. Yep, looks like they're doing it now. Look. Trig spotted a very large canvas tent at one end of the farmer's market. It was surrounded by armed guards, and there was a sign over the entrance written in the Valdem language. Trig squinted his eyes and read, Valdemar Civil Defense. Self-defense tools available here. Valdemar only. There was a long line of people in front of the tent. Trig watched as men and women entered and then left seconds later carrying various items. Valdemar by the hundreds left the scene carrying machetes, hatchets, pitchforks, axes, sickles, sling blades, scythes, knives, shovels, hammers, mallets, heavy sticks, crowbars, pipe wrenches, pickaxes, clubs, batons, and many other commonplace tools that could be used as weapons. Trig found the sight funny. He laughed as ordinary people were armed with farming tools and blunt weapons, while the actual security guards carried blaster rifles and wore the latest in military armor technology. A drone hovered over the scene, adding to the general sense of absurdity. A little further along, the mining and generator districts. These are the beating hearts of our nation's economy. Extracting raw, natural resources from the world and selling them off is how the bulk of the Empire's money is made. After that, the trade district, financial center. Lots of Olenbar live here, and by extension, so does all of the money. We can't actually enter this district, so I'll turn around. Just before the entrance to the trade district, Trig spotted a checkpoint where a pair of armed Olenbar were stopping all vehicles and forcing their drivers to submit to inspection. Over the checkpoint, a bright red holographic sign proclaimed, City of Venka Urbo. Under Section 47 of the City Code, this district is reserved for the sole use of the Valdemar race and Olenbar guests. No Birkin beyond this point. Violators will be shot. Up next, Ponico gave Trig and Kara a tour of the ecclesiastical district. Here, vast megachurches promised a direct connection to the gods in exchange for a nominal fee. I was a patron of Phaeom, the augury of revelation, Kara confessed. I spent so much of my money on his cult, trying to get insights. That was all before Malum attacked my school, though. Finally, they drove through the administrative district. This is where Emperor Kanto and his government do their work. Ponico gestured to an ostentatious-looking palace. When he declared himself emperor last year, there was a massive ceremony here. I heard rumors that the government was bankrupted by the whole event and had to... Kara, get down! Hide yourself! Ponico's attitude changed in an instant. At his alarmed words, Trig watched as his mother hunkered down in her seat, low enough she could not be seen through the windows. What's happening? Trig asked, holding on to his trembling mother with one hand. Just spotted a familiar face, Ponico said. Safar Vestum is walking along the road about 100 yards in front of us. Who? Trig asked. Chief of the Secret Police, Ponico explained. He and his men keep order in the city far better than the local law enforcement. But order comes with a price. I've heard of Safar, Kara said. Doesn't he abduct girls on random whims? Yes, Ponico replied. Trig felt a chill go through his body. Safar and his men keep the city safe and orderly, and then they reward themselves by, helping themselves to the local women and girls. The prettiest ones are given to the Emperor. Okay, we're past him now. You can sit up, Kara. As Kara clambered back into her seat and adjusted her dress, Trig said, How do you know all of that? You can see for yourself in a moment, Ponico replied. He pointed his finger toward the back side of the royal palace, which had just come into view. As the car drove by, a small, unremarkable door swung open, and a TS woman departed the palace through this ignominious exit. She was carrying a bouquet of beautiful red flowers in one hand, but her face bore an expression of unimaginable misery and anguish. A pair of middle-aged people, her parents, ran forward and embraced the woman in a tearful reunion. "She must have been the most beautiful girl picked up by the secret police today," Ponico commented. "That's the only reason the Emperor would have personally requested her." The trio drove away in grim silence. Ponico resumed a course to the Birkin Hospital. After a few minutes, Trig voiced his thoughts. "It seems like things are bad here. Why doesn't anyone try to change the city?" "Changing the city requires changing the Empire," Ponico replied matter-of-factly. "No one is allowed to talk about changing the Empire, and most of those who did are now living in exile on Lightwater." A few minutes later, the car finally reached the hospital. According to a sign over the entrance, this place was named Hunro Medical Center, and it was a Birkin-only institution. Trig, Ponico, and Kara parked the car and went inside. Trig's jaw fell open. He had never seen so many Birkin people in one place before. Nearly everyone looked similar to Trig and spoke his language. But there was one other detail that caught his attention. There seemed to be music in the air. Looking around, Trig realized that the music was coming from several dozen of the surrounding Birkin people. They weren't bursting out in show tunes or pop music, but were simply speaking in a melodious tune. This became very apparent just moments later when Ponico flagged down a professional-looking man who came over to talk. "Trura! Old friend, what's happened this time?" The man spoke in Birkin, his voice warbling with a curious legato. "My friend broke his arm while we were flying at high G," Ponico explained, talking in a halting staccato. "Can you get his arm back into working order today?" "For as good a friend as you, we always have an opening," the doctor replied. "Young man, come with me and tell me your story." Trig followed, with his mother and Ponico close behind. He tried to tell the story of the pursuit from the prison ship, but the doctor interrupted him. "Forgive my rudeness, but your storytelling is awful. You speak like a Valdemar, yet look like one of us. What kind of Birkin are you?" For the first time in his life, Trig realized that he spoke Birkin with a strong Valdemar accent. The doctor, and to a lesser extent Ponico, quickly explained that storytelling and oral tradition were very important elements of Birkin culture. In turn, the doctor was astounded to learn Trig was raised in a Valdemar household, and he promised to send a message to Pentua. "Your guardian must be so worried," the doctor said, "and simultaneously ashamed. She knew you were Birkin, but never let you take a storytelling class? Outrageous! It's a scandal! On this moon, every Birkin kid learns that subject in primary school." The doctor took Trig into an examination room and looked over his broken arm. Then he gave Trig a warm smile and said, "Listen, any friend of Trura Ponico is a friend of mine. My name is Ibsen Helford. If you need anything, call me on the computer pad. If I'm not around, ring up my daughter Appia. She works here as my assistant." As he was escorted to the X-ray machine, Trig asked, "Hey, is there anything else I need to know about Birkin culture now that I'm here?" "You mean your own culture?" Dr. Helford replied with a laugh. "Well, Oh, I know one thing. Gift giving is really important to us. Think very carefully before offering something to another person."